What is going on, guys? Matt Downs with Daily Grind Fantasy Sports here to give you my NFL Showdown strategy guide breakdown. I will be going over everything that you need to know when approaching these different contests from a cash perspective, single entry perspective, and also MMEing. What I'll also be doing is utilizing Fantasy Cruncher's tools and Lineup Rewind to take a look at the winning combinations from last season. Then what we're going to do is take a look at the information that we found out from the winning lineups and applying it to stacking strategies, grouping, and also contest selection. And the one thing I always do, and this really goes for any sport, is I try to pick up the patterns and the trends, see if there's any kind of correlation between all these winning lineups. Because personally, what I want to do is see what maximizes my upside, whether it's team stacking, positional stacking, or even game script patterns. Now let's take a look at the last 5 winning lineup combinations from last season. And again, I'm utilizing Fantasy Cruncher's Lineup Rewind tool. All right, let's go ahead and focus on this Buffalo-New England matchup first. Again, I don't know the week specific that this was. I believe it was 16-17. Doesn't really matter. Irrelevant. Let's take a look at the lineup combination, the winning lineup combination. This is the exact optimal. I crunched by actual score, and this is what it gave me. Stefon Diggs at the captain spot. We have Lee Smith, who is a tight end, $400 also in there. The flex position, Tyler Bass. Zach Moss is a running back. And we also have Cam Newton, who, by the way, is the only New England Patriot that made it into the optimal here. And then Josh Allen at the quarterback position. So when taking away a couple points here, I want you guys to know that Stefon Diggs, a wide receiver in the captain spot, also paired with Josh Allen. That's very noteworthy here. And then also Cam Newton. Cam Newton doesn't have a wide receiver, it looks like, here in the optimal. So just him. It is a 5-1 stack here. Buffalo Bills looked like they dominated this matchup, or at least scored more fantasy points. Let's see if we can actually find that matchup. Let's see here. Cam Newton going down to Buffalo. Oh, sorry. It highlighted in green. Yeah, 9-38. So they got dominated. So very noteworthy. It looks like the Buffalo Bills 5-1 stack won that one. All right, taking a look at the next lineup. We got, it looks like the Bengals versus Steelers. We have Bernard at the captain position. He's a running back. Next, we have the kicker. Benny Snell followed up the running back for the Steelers. Ryan Finley was starting that game. The quarterback there for the Bengals. We have Deontay Johnson, we all know of, wide receiver, and then Big Ben. So a 3-3 stack actually made this one. Only $48,200 were used here in the optimal lineup. There's only a couple takeaways from this, is that Bernard is matched here with Ryan Finley. Also, Ben Roethlisberger matched with Deontay Johnson. But I like this because it looks like the running back for this game, Bernard, caught a touchdown out of the backfield. He sure did. One reception. It was his only reception for 14 yards and a touchdown. So there's some correlation there between the catching back and also Ryan Finley, the quarterback, obviously. All right, moving on to the next optimal here. We have a 5-1 stack. Kareem Hunt in the captain spot. Njoku, Higgins, Mayfield, Nick Chubb. Both running backs made it there for the Browns. Looks like they dominated this from a fantasy point perspective. And then Lamar Jackson made it in there naked. Lamar Jackson, we know, is primarily used for his rushing ability, passing ability. He kind of can do it all. He is that offense. So it kind of makes sense that he made it in here by himself. But Baker Mayfield heavily relies on this passing game. We know that. So Rashard Higgins made it in there. And I'd be interested to see if Kareem Hunt actually caught a touchdown in this game. 77 yards for a touchdown. So there's some correlation there between Kareem Hunt and Baker Mayfield. Regardless, a 5-1 stack also made the exact optimal. They won $11,848. The specific lineup did, and a $1 million maker. So this was a chalky lineup. As you can see, they maxed out the 50,000 mark. Another thing to take into consideration, maybe it's better to not max out your salary. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, because this one didn't max it out and won $1 million. This first one got pretty close to maxing it out. Let me see if I can run some contest data here. Analyze. Yeah, I mean, this one was duplicated. It was close to 50,000 as well. So take that in consideration. All right, moving on to the fourth lineup breakdown here. We have $49,200 used. We have Lamar Jackson at the captain spot. We just broke down the Ravens, but he is that offense. Miles Boykin. We have Gallup, Brown, Cooper, and then Andy Dalton. So what I noticed here is that Lamar Jackson was the optimal captain here, not a skilled player position like a wide receiver, tight end, or a running back. So that's also noteworthy. It looks like there was no running back that actually made it into the optimal here. So another thing to take away, 3-3 stack yet again. Last but not least, we have, it looks like, the Rams versus the Buccaneers. Robert Woods, a wide receiver, made it into the captain spot. Van Jefferson, also a wide receiver. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp, and then Jared Goff. So looks like another QB made it into the optimal here with Jared Goff. Looks like Robert Woods had a sensational game, scoring 50.4 points in that captain spot, capitalizing here on the upside of Jared Goff and Robert Woods. So I just did a bunch of talking, going over some of these optimals, and I have a list here of what I've gathered from those lineups. The number one thing I noticed is that no defenses made it into the small sample size of lineups. However, I know this is more game script dependent. If a bad team is playing a very good defense, yes, defenses are always going to be taken into consideration. But for the most part, defenses do not make it into the optimal. Another thing that I noticed from last season is that defenses generally carry a decent amount of ownership. I'm not talking 50% like they did in preseason, but they still carry more ownership than they should, even in shootouts. And I'll actually be interested to see what the defenses were in this game. If we take, again, these are just projections. But taking a look here at defense, yeah, 12.5% and 9.2%. And again, this was a shootout potential game. I get that the Bucs have a good defense, but the Rams have a very good offense. And I never really understood the reasoning behind, why people play defenses and showdowns, especially in this type of game script. I guess it's just because people get that 10 additional point bonus at the very beginning of the game, and it's like I guess it's guaranteed, even though it's not technically. They're right off the rip. But again, just taking a look here at the small sample size, defenses really don't make it into the optimal that often without a scoring touchdown or really just a complete shutdown. And personally, I usually don't include defenses in any of my builds. Usually. The second thing I noticed when taking a look at these lineups is that a captain wide receiver was always paired with a flex quarterback. As you can see here on the screen, Robert Woods, captain, also has Jared Goff. If a wide receiver has a very good game, that means a quarterback will probably have a very good game. And taking a look here at the very first optimal, we also had Stephon Diggs at the captain spot, paired with Josh Allen. All these lineups are capitalizing on the upside of both the wide receiver and quarterback. And the third thing I noticed was the exact same thing here for catching running backs out of the backfield. We saw this with Giovanni Bernard. He caught a touchdown out of the backfield. Well, guess what? Ryan Finley also benefited from that from a fantasy perspective. Same thing with Kareem Hunt. Also caught a pass from Baker Mayfield. They both had a very good game. The fourth thing I noticed here is that quarterbacks can technically make the optimal without a wide receiver. Hence here, Lamar Jackson in this exact same lineup. But again, that's more game script dependent. And as you can see through the optimals that we crunched here, it was really just Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton. Very rushing dependent, and definitely don't rely on their passing game as much as these other quarterbacks. So you take, for example, somebody like Tom Brady that's very reliant on the passing game. I wouldn't play him naked in any one of these showdown lineups because what's the possibility he's going to go out and rush for 3 touchdowns, not score a passing touchdown? The fifth thing I noticed is that wide receivers can make it into the optimal without a quarterback. And I'm talking about the flex positions, not the captain spot. For instance, if Robert Woods has a very, very good game and he makes the optimal captain spot, more than likely Jared Goff is going to be the person passing to him. So I would always pair a captain wide receiver with a quarterback to maximize that upside there. But for the flex positions, if the quarterback spreads the ball around, you can see points going around to really any kind of wide receiver here, any price tag really. And that makes sense here because Tom Brady spread the ball around to both Chris Godwin and Mike Evans in this matchup, and they happen to both outscore him, thus making the optimal. And the last thing that I noticed here when looking at all the optimal lineups from last season is that quarterbacks usually always make the optimal. At least one quarterback from either side. So you guys have already seen this from the last 5 lineups that I broke down. A quarterback from the game made the optimal, whether it was in the captain spot or in the flex position. So now let's take everything that we just learned and apply it to showdown slates going forward. How can we maximize the upside? Taking all of the patterns that we just learned from Lineup Rewind. We're going to take a look here at the very first week of the 2021 NFL season here with the Dallas Cowboys and Bucks. My first takeaway from Lineup Rewind was that defenses don't really make the optimal unless it's a very low scoring game. But specifically, and again, you have to use your brain here, Dallas, Tampa Bay, 51 over under is a pretty high over under. So what am I going to do? I'm going to take that chance and probably just not include the defenses here in my player pool, which you've seen that I'm already doing. Plus the Bucks are going to be close to 15% owned, Cowboys 9% owned. The ownership there is just not worth it. If I'm getting different, I think that's a very good edge here off the rip. So if you're using Fantasy Cruncher, all you need to do is head to the left side here and just simply uncheck them and get them out of your player pool at the captain spot and flex position. And the second point I made was that a wide receiver captain usually always makes it with a quarterback flex. So what can you do in Fantasy Cruncher to really force that to happen in every one of your lineups? Because you want to capitalize on that wide receiver upside as well as the quarterback. And the first thing to do is head over to the Advanced Options tab. You're going to head over to the Groups and then go to Auto Group Creator. And what the Group Creator tab allows you to do in the Auto Creator Group tab is it allows you to set certain groups based on key players. For instance, right now I have my settings set to a captain above 1 projected ownership, and every player that matters should be over 1%. You can even set it to 0 here. Use as a key player, and then auto include any player or any captain over 0% is now paired with a quarterback, because what we're doing is we're looking for receiving running backs and wide receivers in that captain spot, and now we're automatically pairing them with a quarterback. And I set this from the same game. It should be from same team, and any quarterback over 1%. We're just looking at Dak Prescott and Tom Brady here. And what I'm going to do here is scroll down to Auto Create Groups, and what you should see is a new group created for every single player. Every single captain is now paired with a quarterback. Now, this threw in Tom Brady at the captain spot. Gave me Tom Brady. That's just something you're going to have to manually get rid of. Same thing for Dak Prescott. But now, take a look at all these groups that are created. Zeke, now at the captain spot, is paired with Dak Prescott. Now, this is up for debate. Like, yes, Zeke does catch touchdowns out of the backfield, but he's primarily on the ground. Personally, I might get rid of that because not only that, Zeke's going to be a very high-owned captain spot, so I'm going to try to get contrarian here and not put him, not make that a priority to pair him with Dak Prescott. Mike Evans paired with Tom Brady. Fantastic. That's what I'm looking for. Chris Godwin also paired with Tom Brady. Keep going down the line. Cooper, Prescott, Lamb, Prescott, Fournette, Tom Brady. Again, up for debate. You can keep him in there if you want. You don't have to. I'll keep him in here just for the sake of showing you guys that whenever I have Leonard Fournette, I'm always going to be pairing him with Tom Brady. Gallup, Prescott, Brown, Tom Brady, Gronk, Tom Brady, Jarwin, tight end. He's also there. Ronald Jones, again, for the sake of simplicity, I'm keeping him in there. Schultz, tight end. Pollard, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of him. Again, up for interpretation, but this is how you do it. This is how you force the stacks, force the players to be in there with their quarterback. Suck up, I'm getting rid of. He's a kicker. Cameron Brate in there. OJ Howard, tight end. Giovanni Bernard, Gronk, sorry, I need to scroll down now. Giovanni Bernard, I'll go ahead and keep him in there. Scotty Miller, also a wide receiver. Cedric Wilson, Tyler Johnson, okay. Sprinkle, Noah Brown. There's some irrelevance in here that we could probably get rid of that you probably don't want in the captain spot. Anyway, they shouldn't appear in your builds too often. I'll show you guys here in a second what I'm talking about. But all these groups have been forced to have a quarterback and wide receiver combination, specifically those skill player positions in the captain spot. So let's now test it. What I like to do, just for general builds here, is I put my randomness to 5,000% for no particular reason other than just showing you guys to give you guys a bunch of lineups. The next part is putting a minimum salary. That's the next important step. Right now I have it $46,000 just because there's some studs here in this game. Like, we know that the optimal should have Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Cooper, Zeke. Like, those guys are probably going to be heavily involved in this game. Dak Prescott, Tom Brady. So a huge amount of salary should be the optimal in this game. Again, just use your brain here. But yeah, usually you leave a lot of salary on the table to get different. I'd say in this game, it's not as important as other slates. But anyway, I set it to $46,000. We're changing this to 5,000 randomness. And now let's test what we just did in the auto stacker. And we should have a skill player position always paired with their quarterback. Let's now crunch 500 lineups. And I skipped forward here a little bit. Let's now take a look at the captains. And we're just looking at skilled player positions here. Zeke was, no, we didn't include him. We did not include him with Dak Prescott, so we're not looking at Zeke. He's not a good example. Antonio Brown, I know for a fact that we set him in the captain spot paired with Tom Brady. So let's now double check. Antonio Brown, TB, Brown, Tom Brady, Brady's in all these. Oh, that's weird. I wonder why. So now we're capitalizing, making sure that each one of those lineups now have Antonio Brown at the captain spot paired with Tom Brady. Let's take a look at Gallup. Let's make sure that Prescott's in all these lineups. All right. Gallup, Prescott. This has Prescott and Tom Brady. Prescott, Dak. Oh, that's weird. He's in every single one. I wonder why. Dak. All right. We get the point, right? So each one of these builds, these skilled player positions, should have a quarterback paired with him. They will. Ronald Jones was the running back that I set with Tom Brady. Let's make sure that Tom Brady's in each one of these. Brady, goat, Brady. There's Brady. Look at that. Every single one. All right, so now you know that that stacking feature or group feature works. And again, you can pair any two players at any point, but again, the wide receiver should always be paired with a quarterback if he's in the captain spot. And now taking a look at my last point that I have when looking at lineup rewind is making sure that a quarterback is in each one of your lineups. And there's different ways to do this, but I just head back to the group tab here and let's go ahead and auto create some new groups. This one you kind of have to play around with, but the one thing to focus on here is making sure the captain spot, this is what I have, over 1 projected ownership, and then players to include quarterback from the same game. And again, I set the 1 to over 1 projected ownership. So what this is saying is that it's going to create a captain, have a quarterback from the same game, so it doesn't have to necessarily be from the same team, above 1% ownership in every single stack. Now, when I create this, I'm going to get more or even more exposure here to the quarterbacks. So you know what? Let's actually make this 0 projected ownership. Therefore, if we get a kicker in the captain spot, I want to make sure that there's still a quarterback in the lineup at all times. All right, and then we auto create groups, and you guys should see here, any captain should be paired with a quarterback from either team. And as you can see, it looks like that's the case. Heading down, even these no names have a quarterback in there. I want to make sure these kickers are also paired with them. All right, and enable all groups. I don't need to do that, but I do it anyway because I have OCD. Let's now go ahead and create 500 new lineups and make sure that we have a quarterback in every single lineup. All right, and 500 lineups just got done. And again, we can just head down to any one of these, double check, make sure Dak Prescott, Tom Brady, blah, 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 blah. Yep, they're all in there. Tom Brady's in, looks like Dak Prescott made a couple of these. And again, I can just run through these to make sure that you guys get it, get the point. Tom Brady, Dak is in every single, all right, boom. I'm trying to look for Tom Brady here. Tom Brady not making these? I guess that makes sense because Cooper's so expensive. But yeah, anyway, you guys get the point. It looks like Tom Brady's not in there, so that can make for a contrarian lineup. Anyway, yeah, that's how I do it. That's how I force a quarterback in every single one of these lineups. Now let's talk about lineup construction, all right? So now that we have our lineups, what are we looking for? What kind of lineups are we putting in here? And again, this is more of a personal way that I do this, and this is the way that I've seen success here in Showdown slates. First of all, for cash, we want to focus on cash first because I know there's a lot of cash players out there. One position that always dominates the others in terms of ownership is going to be the quarterback position. So when you're playing small cash contests, I would prioritize captains to be quarterbacks. As you can see, quarterbacks here, if we go to all and sort by ownership, it looks like Tom Brady and Dak Prescott are the highest owned. I didn't even know that. I just assumed based on last year. One thing to always consider too is that passing quarterbacks usually don't make the actual optimal as a captain. So guess what? For this slate, that could be a great way to get different. Putting a quarterback in the captain spot for very small GBPs and cash games, but fading them completely in the captain spot and putting wide receivers or running backs, as we know, they usually make the optimal in the captain spot. So what I like to do is I like to uncheck everything, whether you're playing 20 lineups, whether you're playing 150, and I like to start out with the lowest owned captains and work my way up. So like Mike Evans is going to be a very good contrarian player at the captain spot with very high upside, as you can see. Not only that, Tampa Bay is favored by 7 points, so I don't get why these wide receivers are so low owned. But Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, a great place to start here at the captain spot. I want to avoid the quarterbacks at the captain spot. And you can just go through these and check them. Whether you're playing 20 lineups, like I'm going to be taking a chance here on Mike Evans because I know he's going to be lower owned and he's going to differentiate myself a lot when it comes to these bigger tournaments. And again, I ran this on 5,000% randomness, and you got to consider that like everybody utilizing an optimizer tool or fantasy cruncher, they aren't going through this process like we're doing. They're not setting the auto feature, the auto stack feature, the auto groups. They're simply just crunching 150 lineups, and usually this is the process of a lot of others, and it's just not right, where they're setting their exposures to 50% and they're just clicking randomize 25%. I set this to 5,000, so I got a good sample size of like what the public is thinking in terms of captains. And it makes sense that Dak Prescott, Tom Brady are going to be very high owned in the captain spot. And not that many people are going to have Mike Evans. And again, I would just check off the more contrarian plays here. Go by contest size, maybe sort by salary, and maybe just not even look at the 50,000. Oh, and there's actually a lot of them. So like I could start here, and I know that these are getting different, and I would plug and play these in big tournaments. And again, checking off as many as you want, taking a hard stance on Mike Evans, going through, maybe taking a hard stance here on Chris Godwin. And again, my process is not mechanical, and that's where a lot of people tend to mess up in their DFS process. And this has worked for me. I got actually three major takedowns last season and showdowns playing 150 lineups doing this exact same process. And this does work. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's how I utilize Fantasy Crunch with my advantage for showdowns. These are the settings. These are the exact settings that I use, capitalizing on the upside of these skill player positions and seeing that there is some type of correlation here in showdown lineups. And if you guys did enjoy this content, please do hit that subscription button, notification bell, and of course, smash that like button for all of our future NFL content. With all that being said, have a great rest of your day, and let's cash.